difficult for the Christian to truly be a witness there. The same thing happened in France, a totally unexpected person. Canada, and of course, very much here in the United States. The Philippines, Duterte, almost everyone you talk to say, if you'd asked us a few years ago, this would never have happened. One thing it reminds you and me of that what Luther said, history is like a drunken man really knocking himself from one wall to the other, ending up senseless, hitting the wall in this extreme, moving to the wall in the other extreme. What that really tells you is that politics has not been the answer, but has always hoped that it will be the answer. And when you end up in a sense of despair, you wonder if you ought to move to somebody else in another extreme. During the early church, the key figures of the Roman Empire were looming largely over the Jewish state. And they were desperately looking for somebody who could break through the barrier. And God changed history through the conversion of one man. Today I was being interviewed by a journal, by a news magazine, and they began with the comment that Franklin Graham has said, these are very, very dark times. Would you agree? I said, yes. I said, do you have any, or they said, do you have any hope for the future? I gave him my usual line, prophecy is very difficult, especially about the future. But I did say to him, the fact of the matter is, I always like to say there is hope, because if you don't say that, you're not really resting on the possibility that God can do something miraculous and change history. But what I truly believe is that things are going to get much worse before they actually get better, because we're moving at such a high speed, and the faster you are moving, the farther ahead you need to be able to see. And so we are moving at that speed. Think of all that is being done in the Roman road of today. What is the Roman road of today? It's the internet. Think of what is happening with the Greek language of today. What is the Greek language? It's right here on your head. And if we don't understand the language and the road of our times, we will never be able to get the message or find the pathway in order to get
good morning.
It's a tumultuous time, it's a nerve-wracking time, and every one of you goes to bed wondering when you wake up, what kind of news are you really going to hear? So much happens so fast. When you talk about the post-truth society, it has come
invite
to a
guests
point
to a
not
broadcast.
so much that people do not believe in the truth, but they really wonder where they can get it. That's the biggest doubt they have. Which source do I go to get the truth with so much coming at you in so many different directions?
Sursurok tagi kapipe sa maya di kalmanan.
Young Paul, who's wanting to get to Rome, it was his longing, even though many were warning him.
But di magamit di kapi ni Facebook
dito.
dito.
Your life will be taken from you. But he was determined to get to Rome, and what happened in his visit to Rome changed all of history.
Ikaw man jiling mo, isi kabel mo ni Jay kwa.
And so here he is standing
Dito
in
ni
front
itet box.
of the man whom he's going to truly address, and I want to Felix particularly, but referring to many others. Let me read the passage for you. Then Felix, who
invite Jackie, kasunod invite.
adjourned the proceedings. When Lysias, the commander, comes, he said, I will decide your case. He ordered the centurion to keep Paul under guard, but to give him some freedom and permit his friends to take care of his needs. Several days later, Felix came with his wife Drusilla, who was a Jewess. He sent for Paul and listened to him as he spoke about faith in Christ Jesus. As Paul discoursed on righteousness, self-control, and the judgment to come. Those are the three things: righteousness, self-control, and the judgment to come. Felix was afraid and said, that's enough for now. You may leave. When I find it convenient, I will send for you. At the same time, he was hoping that Paul would offer him a bribe, so he sent for him frequently and talked with him. Clarence Edward McCartney gives this description of the scene. What a contrast. On the throne sat Felix, the faded and withered pagan. A former slave, he became a favorite of Claudius, and by that emperor was exalted to high rank. Greed, cruelty, and lust were stamped upon his countenance. His administration as procurator of Judea had been marked by injustice, extortion, and violence. By his side sat the lovely Jewess Drusilla, a daughter of Herod Agrippa. She had first married a Gentile who, to please her, had become a Jew. Then Felix, with the aid of a sorcerer's incantations, had won her from her husband and was living with her in sin and shame. All that was dishonorable in mankind was represented by that combination of Felix and Drusilla as they sat on the throne awaiting the address by St. Paul. Before them, with chains on his arms and his body scarred with the marks of his sufferings for Christ's sake, and his coarse garment which his own hands had probably woven, contrasting with the velvet and purple of Felix and his paramour, stood the lonely ambassador for Christ. Think of that scene. Ordinary man, from what history tells us, he wasn't very much of a tall figure. Some people think he had even weakness with his eyes or whatever it was. They guess at all of this. But here he is now, standing in Felix's court. He's coming towards the end of his life. And what McCartney reminds us is this, that he was standing in front of a man with the power of a king, but the mind of a slave. Felix had 3 wives. The first was the granddaughter of Antony and Cleopatra. Drusilla was the daughter of Agrippa, first married to a Syrian plenipotentate, and at 16 was lured away by a sorcerer's incantations to marry Felix. So everything that was dishonorable, he's really sitting with a young teenage gal by his side. And Paul has to now present the gospel to him. How does he approach it? I think it is almost impossible to draw parallels between what was happening in Rome and what's happening in our time. If you read Gibbon's The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, you begin to recognize very quickly so much was going on in Rome that the difference between right and wrong was not even known. The whole issue of sexuality had degenerated to a point where norms were not there anymore and relativism had taken hold. Abortion was at very, very high level. Marriage was almost completely desacralized. If you read Alfred Edersheim on his description of Rome at that time, you will see page after page, and the more you read it, you'll ask yourself, is this really that long ago, or is it exactly what is happening in our time as well? Now, when you are in the workforce as you are, or in the world of business, where so much goes on in terms of contracts and finance and understanding and marketing and sales and value and all that stuff, how do you find a point of reference? How do you find a point of reference to interact with people? We were just 2 days ago in Silicon Valley. We had a whole day of interaction with some of the CEOs of the biggest companies out there. If I name many of them, you'll know who they are. But it was fascinating to listen to the struggle that they have in this time with that sophistication and that control of so much of technology. How do you get the name of Christ in a conversation? We were told that if you go to the Bay Area, somebody in San Francisco is really not interested in what's going on in San Jose, and San Jose is not interested in what's going on in the next corridor out there, because it's so vast and so powerful and one of the wealthiest parts of this country per capita. And it was fascinating to listen to 2 men who came from very high levels of very successful companies. And one of them was asked this question: do your employees, with so many thousands of them, know you are a Christian? In fact, Sam asked that question. And the man paused and he said, probably most of them do. I talk about it very often. Most of them do. They know that I'm a Christian. And there he is, over thousands and thousands of employees. And then another man from an equally sophisticated company said, when you come and ask me to attend a Bible study, I tell them I can't.